Hi, good morning, Malcolm Nance.
Good morning. I'm actually secreted myself on the Hudson River waterfront,
Oh,
trying to calm myself down from all the only way I can put it is effery that has been transpiring over the last few days.
yeah, Malcolm, I don't even know where to start. I've been saying all morning. So this latest story, the data on the financial transfers between bolstered suspicions that Russia offered bounties. In the intelligence, I don't know, in the legal business, this is hard evidence, right? In the intelligence community, obviously, I mean, they deliberately, even to Republican lawmakers, tried to present this yesterday as disputed intelligence. Because sometimes you don't know, right, if the intelligence you get from detainee interrogations is true. But this, to me, seems like this was the hard evidence that backed this up, that made it. That's why it was in the presidential daily brief, right?
Right. Well, let me explain to you. Let me give you some spy-splaining Wednesday.
Spy-splain to me,
Um,
please.
Here's how things transpire. You do a special operations mission, you kick down some doors, you storm a mud hut where you know that a Taliban paymaster is at, you capture everyone who's inside the room, you start your SSE, sensitive site exploitation mission. That's what we call it when we root through everything they have. And you're expecting to find a few $100,000 of old rupees and Pakistani rupees and maybe a few $100s in new US bills. And you pull out a packet from the ground, and inside is 10 million brand new US dollars that you should not find in a place like this. You interrogate the people and you find out that this money was given to them by an intermediary, you follow that intermediary, you find him crossing the border to Tajikistan and going to the Central Bank of Tajikistan, and you determine that all those $100 bills, because we track every one of those serial numbers, comes from an account which had money transferred to it by a private military contractor or a subsidiary Russian organization that is linked to the GRU. So now you watch that money electronically, right? NSA starts getting involved, Treasury intelligence starts getting involved. We start going after the phones of the people who are actually seen in there, the people who are involved in the transactions in Moscow. And you confirm that that money came from Russia. But then you talk to those prisoners again and they go, yeah, well, we were offered $1,000, 10 US brand new US dollar bills, because that's all they'll handle is $100 US dollar bills. And every time we kill an American, this guy pays us out of this, account. Otherwise, we just get our bag of, oatmeal and, a share of goat, and that's what our salary is. So it makes sense for us to go out and kill more Americans so we can have this sweet, sweet cash. Then US intelligence, now having traced it all the way back to Russia, will then build up a picture of all of its attacks and go back and reinterrogate people and check to see, were these attacks paid for out of this special fund. And usually when you tell somebody that you're going to, let them go, or you're going to go easy on you, it's not his money. So they generally tell you the truth. That's how we got this picture. I had heard this story. I had heard the story that Russia was sending weapons from Tajikistan to Afghanistan in 2017. And that was confirmed by the commander of U.S. forces in Afghanistan, General Nicholson, in 2018, when he went on NBC News and said Russia has a pipeline of weapons going to Afghanistan. But you can't always sustain that pipeline. So the easiest thing to do is send over money, because that gets results. And this story, we find out from John Bolton, was well known in the White House in 2019.
Well, thank you. And as you said this weekend, Malcolm, these are lies. There's a special reporting communication systems for very imminent, very critical threat intelligence that gets these reports to the desk of the president or into the president's hand 24/7, 365 in no more than 10 minutes. I mean, there is no plausible way, is there, that Trump didn't know about this?
No, and here's how that every agency has a flash traffic system. Flash traffic means the highest possible movement. and critical information system, critical information warning system that goes directly to the president from the moment you recognize the criticality of the threat. One of those reports would have been, we are capturing weapons from Russia that we have tracked across the Tajik border. They are funding the Taliban. That would have been one of the flash traffic messages that went to the president. Now, once you get that sweet, sweet money captured and you find out that this stuff is going through Tajikistan and is now being distributed, that is the sort of information the president must know. He must know it because it changes the entire geopolitical dynamic between Russia and the United States. If you care about U.S. soldiers, if you don't care about U.S. soldiers, you stick it in your pocket and then you invite Vladimir Putin to join the G7. So I'm pretty sure Donald Trump got that message within 10 minutes of recognition. And let me define this. Recognition could have been after the CIA analyzed it for 6 months, after the Special Operations Command captured 2 more caches of money. Whenever they finally decide, hey, this thing's real, that's when the president would have had this flash communication brought to him, because, again, it would change the political dynamic between Russia and the United States if confirmed.
Yeah. Malcolm, you you said again on TV, you said, I always say this about Trump relationship with Putin. When you owe money to your bookie, you talk nice about him. I mean, here we go. As you also said, how did you say it? You said, hang on a second, that any normal United States president would have been livid, right? I mean, you said Trump doesn't seem remotely upset if no one briefed him, which I don't believe for a second, but you said you'd think he'd be livid unless he's lying. I mean, seriously? He still has not condemned Putin or this, or the, right? Only condemned the media as usual.
You could be the nicest, most milquetoast president in American history. You could be Jimmy Carter and say, you know what, I'm going to pray on this and I'm going to have a discussion about that with my National Security Council staff. But first, I'm calling in the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? And then I'm going to call the director of national intelligence and the director of the CIA, director of NSA, and we're going to have a powwow. And I want to know if this is true, because if it's true and you've confirmed at least one hit that killed 3 Marines, we're going to be having a discussion about this, whether you make a diplomatic note, whether you withdraw your ambassador to the United States, whether you decide to do any myriad of things which do not involve kinetic warfare or asymmetric warfare against Russia, or a direct confrontation internationally, you're going to do something, right? There's not a person here, every one of us who is listening to this show is more qualified to be president than Donald Trump, because we would safeguard the lives of our service members.
And somebody,
not Donald Trump.
Yeah, and somebody tweeted Malcolm Nance for DNI under Biden, and you said, I'm better qualified than the current bunch of incompetents. I mean, that's the other thing.
That's actually literally true.
Well, of course.
True.
But we had Chairman Schiff on yesterday, Malcolm, and he said the right people weren't in the room. It wasn't intelligence professionals like you. It was political appointees and hacks that were deliberately trying to misinform even Republicans by saying, oh, yes, the intelligence, as you know, it was raw. Then these financial data transfers happened, and it wasn't raw anymore, right? It was to the PDF level, correct?
Look, but you have to understand. Let me define for you again, do a little more spy-splaining between raw and processed intelligence, analyzed intelligence, right? When we kick that door down and we drag all those people out and we write up those initial reports and we stack that money there, and you have pictures of guys lying on top of tables in their underwear and body armor with that $10 million. I've actually seen that. That's the fun we have in the field. I actually sat on $1 billion Iraqi dollars.
Sorry, you and your underwear just popped in my head and I lost my train. Go ahead. Lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Oh, I wear what we call Ranger panties, which are running shorts. But, you know, when you do
I'm not going to be able to focus now, but go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's raw intelligence. And then when that information goes up to the joint analytical cell or the theater analytical cell in Bagram Air Force Base, or Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, it starts becoming processed where
Yeah.
they fuse together. They do fusion intelligence. They put together all of these parts, and you get a multi-dimensional, multi-source product.
Now,
That
was
product
that?
is sent to Defense Intelligence Agency
Yeah.
and then to the CIA and Director of National Intelligence, and they analyze it, and then they fuse in what the CIA agents in Tajikistan have been getting, what U.S. diplomats have been hearing in Moscow, what the Treasury Department is actually seeing based on their NSA intercepts of bank transcripts, and then CIA and DNI create a product that is that has all sources. That is finished intelligence product.
Now, was
It
that
turns
raw?
out,
And was that raw intelligence about your underwear, or was that processed?
well, no, if they had sent the photo, that would have been raw.
Okay, got it.
But for the most part, what now you got us actually using technical terms and jokes.
Okay, sorry.
So these finished, as I understand it, multiple finished intelligence products went to the National Security Council staff.
And can I
So
ask?
none of that's raw.
Right. Can I
It's
ask
all,
you?
I mean, it's all based on, a rumor or a find, and they're dancing around that word and the word briefed to mislead us.
Thank you. And Malcolm, can I get your take too on? Because again, all these stories end up just being worse and worse and worse by the news cycle than we thought they were, right? And I tend to believe Bolton's timeline on this. I don't know about you, but our friend AG at Mueller, she wrote, said in March, Trump was briefed that Russians were paying Afghans to murder U.S. troops. He also fired the DNI and gutted the National Counterterrorism Center in March. Oh, and for the first time since 2006, the DNI threat report was kept from public and Congress in March. I mean, like you always say, coincidence takes a lot of planning. This has the smell of another full-on cover-up of stuff that he's known for God knows how long, doesn't it?
For those of you who haven't read my book, The Plot to Betray America, the paperback edition is coming out in a few weeks. And I upgraded it. I updated it right to just before this scandal. And it's just packed full of all of those things you just said. Every time over the last 4 years that he has compromised national security, it's plain as day. And it's more plain that he does it for two things: love of money and love of Putin. And I actually have to apologize to Benedict Arnold at the end of my book. Because, no, really, because Benedict Arnold at least served the nation and almost lost his leg fighting the British, and then turned strictly for money.
Yeah.
Right. And
Trump has always been a traitor. You're right.
Yeah, but he had the nerve. He actually had the honor to write George Washington and tell him, Donald Trump is going to come off like another general, General Charles Lee, the guy who lost the Battle of Monmouth. 46 years after that war ended, the revolution ended, they found a letter of his giving the British the battle plan to defeat George Washington. So I suspect when Trump's out of office, the documented treason will actually be found. And it won't be pretty. We'll have to send people to prison at that point.
Thank you, Malcolm. We just talked to Glenn Kirshner about that, but can I just one last one, because I'm as concerned as I'm sure you are with this election. Lev Parnas tweeted, I want to get your take on Lev Parnas tweeted, Russia has infiltrated election systems, but just has yet to leverage those hacks. They have not largely planned for a large vote-by-mail effort, hence why Trump is scared of voting by mail. It's also why he's scared of the large deficit he shows in the polls. You always give, after scaring the living bejesus out of us, you always give us hope that we can overcome this, that we can overcome the massive amount of help we know he's going to get from Russia and God knows where else in voter suppression, right?
We can. And you know what? We've already seen good examples of this. We have to blow the margins out. That means right now, every one of you who is listening to the sound of my voice, I want you to personally identify 5 people who have not voted that you will take to the polls on election day, particularly if you're in a a red state that could be a swing state like Texas, like Georgia, like Florida, Ohio. Those states we have to win and to blow this away. There was an election map that said that if it could be held today, Joe Biden would win 400 electoral college votes.
Yeah.
We have the capacity to do this, but this is going to be one of those, I'm staying in line till midnight like the old black ladies did in Georgia.
I'm praying to my Nuremberg prosecutor daddy that this is a bigger landslide than Goldwater Miller in '64. I think he'll be rooting for that. Malcolm, real quick, speaking of which, dearly departed, you tweeted, my deepest sympathy goes out to Rob Reiner, his wife Michelle, and family for the loss of their dad, Carl Reiner. We all loved him as an artist, a patriot, and a voice of reason in an age of unreason. And I have to say, I was hesitant to write yesterday because, the day of is always, and Rob was kind enough to write back. And I just said that on behalf of all of us because so many of, obviously our Steph Head family, because I said, what a kind, wonderful, brilliant man he was and son. It just, I can't say enough about them as a family, as patriots, right?
And we know them personally and we love them. And I feel sorry for them. And, Carl was an amazing person. And unfortunately, he was a patriot right to the last day.
Yes. Yes.
But to be honest,
tweeting right up, yes, to 98 years old. But I was going to say, Malcolm, what a life well lived, right? Married to love of his life for like 60, almost 5 years. Wonderful family and son, amazing career. Talk about just a patriot and again a life well lived. So anyway.
Well, if his tweets can be retweeted because they will live eternal for us. And let me tell you, I know he would appreciate this comment. I wanted to say it yesterday. He still owes me lunch. So, him and Mel Brooks.
Malcolm Nance never got a lunch. Okay. All right. Love you.
Collect someday.
All right. Love you, honey. Talk to you next week.
Love you all.
All right.
Bye-bye.